Anarchy. It seems to be a pretty confusing subject for most people because nobody knows what the heck it is that they're talking about. Usually a lot of people think that it just means chaos. A lot of people that will think about anarchists as just like hippies that believe in, this utopia. And I'm not going to say there isn't any, but for the most part, this whole idea that anarchy is just no rules and everybody gets to do with what they want, that's a free-for-all. It's like, that doesn't happen. Even in situations of world war, that doesn't happen. Life goes on. People want to get to they want to get back. Like, let's say everything did go down. The proverbial fecal matter hit the oscillating device. People are not just going to want to accept that this is just life. People are going to want to get to a form of normalcy. And people think that anarchy can't provide that, but I believe it's one of the more, one of the systems that's more adapted to be able to do that because it doesn't depend on everything that we think that we need to survive. It doesn't depend on this whole bureaucratic method. It doesn't depend on this whole state to keep itself afloat. It doesn't even depend on capitalism. It's not supposed to, or else it wouldn't be anarchy. But for the most part, the only people that think that anarchy is either chaos or some utopia, or they think that it's just once we because you don't really achieve anarchy. Anarchy is supposed to be an ongoing process. Is what I've heard from other anarchists. One of them, I think, was his name is Anarchy. It's kind of a interesting name, but yeah, he explained that you're not. It's not supposed to be like, oh wow, we've reached the promised land, and after this it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. But no, it's supposed to be an ongoing process. It's like with anything, as you don't just get to happiness, you have to kind of keep it there. You kind of have to keep it. But yeah, the only ones that actually believe that anarchy is like some utopia, some anarchist utopia or chaos, because it always gets thrown in. It's like, oh, if we don't have government, we're going to have chaos, we're going to have anarchy. And it's just like, no, the only ones that say that are literally liberals that have no concept of anything other than what they've experienced. And definitely people that have some kind of stake, or they believe they have some stake in the current system because they pay taxes, so they have to be through some sunk cost fallacy. They think that, oh man, it's like, what would we have without this? But it's just, you understand that life goes on. There's not the end of the world if government somehow just disappears into the ether. But yeah, no, it's another fact to try to prove the idea that it means no rules and it's just a free for all and it's just chaos. It means like the roots of the word anarchy. It means anarchos. I think it's supposed to be Greek. Anarchos. I think usually is supposed to, in Greek, it means like no or nothing. I'm not too sure. I'm not gonna go into autistic detail about it, but arcos also is supposed to be master, so it literally just means no masters. So if that's how you interpret it, you interpret government to be your master, then that's on you bootlicking statist. Let us proceed. But yeah, let's also I'm going to bring up some of the aims of anarchists, and this is kind of more of like your traditional your traditional anarchy, or basically I would consider this like the basic flavor of anarchy, or some would call it I don't know, I've heard it been called black flag anarchy. It's just basically it's all of the things that that kind of make it what it is. It started in Europe, and I don't know who started it or who coined it. I forget. I've heard his name a lot, but it was just one of these philosopher writers, I guess, the 19th century or something like that. But it seeks to establish a classless society, so where everybody just is the same. And it seeks to abolish capitalism, which we all know is just overarching system that seeps into your life, doesn't let go, and makes you dependent on it. It atomizes individuals. It doesn't allow for communities to form. It destroys the family unit. There's a lot of socialists that believe that capitalism benefits the family unit, and that's where we have to destroy the family unit. So, but I don't believe that. I think that's a bunch of Bolshevism, a bunch of Bolshevik, because how many families have been destroyed? Like, they don't talk to each other. They spend all their time on their phone in front of a screen. The dad or even the mom at times, they're all alcoholics. They're all buying these things. It's just no. It destroys the family unit, which I'm imposing my own. I believe it to be true, but yeah, capitalism. I digress. It also seeks to establish horizontal systems of governance. I'm using that term loosely, and it would basically be like abolishing unjust hierarchies. They would say hierarchies in general, but I like to point out, because it's a moment of confusion. There's a lot of anarchists out there that by saying hierarchies, you should know what they mean, but in reality it means unjust hierarchies. I don't care what anybody says, that they say that every hierarchy, no, you just shut up. It's like, that's one of the things about an anarchist society too. It's if you are in an anarchist, community, and or a intentional community, whatever they call themselves, is you're going to want to make the decision for yourself. So this idea that you have to dissolve every hierarchy. I mean, chimpanzees have hierarchies. I'm not saying it's good, because like one guy gets to breed with all the women, but either way, but it's one of the things that most people kind of assume, that hierarchies. It's just like people with religion. We all, I'm an atheist myself, and I just can't see myself being a religious person anymore. But I understand that there's a natural inclination from most people to seek for religion, no matter where in the world they are. There is always going to be that private part of them that seeks religion. So this hierarchy thing, I'm derailing, but yes, unjust hierarchies, and also like freedom of association. That's another one. We shouldn't be able to. If you're going to be part of an anarchist society, anarchist, social order, you should be able to choose who you let into your society, and that's just some of the basic ones. I'm just touching basis on them, but yeah, there's more. It's just some of the things that right off the top of my head. I just made this really quick, but one of the things that is, I'm just making also this video to talk about some of the things that a lot of people think that can happen once, for whatever reason, anarchy actually, let's say it actually happens, the state has been dissolved, and people have decided to collectivize into, I would say, loosely knit tribes with all the same goal in mind. They all decide that they want to survive, and let's say some groups are more equipped at doing certain tasks than others. So now we have those loosely connected groups, those tribes per se. I will say tribes because more I like that term more, but they have to band together. So let's say you have tribes that live, in a more agricultural setting. They are going to be doing most of the farming, and they will trade with other tribes. And let's say there's also tribes that have decided to stay in the cities. They decided to collectivize and band together. So they still, their forms of means of production would be whatever industrial aspects they have there, and they would probably be trading with those people that farm their food, and there would probably be a little bit overlap in there. There'd probably be during the agricultural communities, there would probably be some form of industry. Like, they're not just going to depend, so that's an idea of what would happen. But this idea that everybody has it's funny enough. You bring up anarchism, and everyone envisions this end of the world scenario. It's very laughable actually, because it's almost like as if they literally just go back to some Hollywood movie, or some scene in a show and from the 80s or something, where it's just completely degenerate parts of a city. Everyone is just shooting up, and it's like everyone's doing this and everyone's doing that. Everyone's just like, it's a free for all. And but in reality, anything that you can say could possibly happen in an anarchist society, or after the government has been demolished, it already happens in these liberal democratic social orders. Look at right now what's happening in most big cities. This idea that we have to wait till anarchy shows up before the world goes to crap, it's laughable, because it's kind of like but they are projecting their experiences and saying that this would happen under anarchy. And I honestly, like me myself, I call myself an anarchist, but this is actually kind of a big topic for anarchists, because a lot of anarchists, I believe, are just they're closeted liberals. I feel like they still have this liberal sensibility about them. They were already liberals at one point. They decided anarchy, fit them best ideologically, but there's still some things that they have to shed. And one of the things that they can't shed on is the idea of homelessness. They say that during an anarchist society, an anarchist social order comes into being, that anarchist societies are going to be able to take the brunt of the homeless population. They're going to be able to feed and clothe them, and give them shelter, allow them to do what they want, let them have the autonomy, and this will be great. But that is a liberal pipe dream that even liberals can't even fix. You know what I'm saying? It's like the idea that we have the homeless people that we have right now, and the situation that they are addicted to all kinds of pharmaceutical drugs. It is literally, homelessness is a byproduct of liberalism. And so not to mention too, war, in the sense that we know it's all a product of literally capitalistic, and these governments. It's a byproduct of capitalism and government. This idea of war, it's always been for money. It's always been for gaining more capital. You don't need an anarchist society to be able to bring that to fruition. We're already on the cusp of literally nuclear war with half of the planet. We're on the brink of a civil war in the U.S., and there's still a government intact, and it's going to be like, oh no, it's because nobody trusts the government anymore. And it's like, no, it's because the government does stuff nobody likes. And a lot of people are starting to maybe wake up. I'd like to think maybe sometime soon, but you don't even have to, you don't need anarchy to create chaos. It's like, if anything, anarchy, another guy, I forget what his name is too, but he made a good point too, that on the anarchist flag, at least most anarchist flags, you have the A that's encircled by a ring. It's encircled, and that is supposed to represent order. Is that it's not just about not having masters, but it's also adhering to rules that the people put in place. I'm not going to say laws, but it's like for the most part, everybody lives by their own rules. Like, everybody has ingrained in them. You want to say that it's like, oh, you have to learn these rules, but even then, it's just like most people want to live their lives how they want to live them, usually relative peace. Nobody wants to be fighting with each other. It's like, I had a discussion with some brain dead liberal, wannabe conservatives, and they were talking about how it's like, you don't understand that, if that was the case, cartels would just turn up and turn into militias and this and that. It's like, you got to understand the reasoning behind the cartels. That's what I would like to think, like to say, is just that most of these dudes, they were literally incentivized by money. And a lot of what happens, what they do, these brutal things, they do it to send messages to other cartel members. I'm not saying this is good, but it's just, even with the cartels, they might have leniency in some cases because of the government, but at the end of the day, it's all capitalism based. You think that you really want to shed blood with another community that's just as heavily armed as you are? I mean, it makes no sense unless you have, if you think that you can, like, band together and create, like some confederacy. Yeah, it's like, but that was going to happen regardless. It doesn't matter. Yeah, they say that you might have a power vacuum, but well, do you really content with the power stranglehold that we have on the people as it is? I mean, most gun owners right now, they can see that the government is not taking their best interest into account when it comes to weapons, and I think a lot of leftists see that too. And it's just like, really, would you really want this government in control of your lives, of your everyday lives? But I digress. But yeah, this idea that that chaos comes only after anarchy. It's just like, you don't know the world around you. These people are stupid. They are blind. But that's what you have to do, is drop these seeds. But yeah, also with that anarchy, a lot of people, it is a form of socialism, but it's not the cringe socialism that a lot of liberals like to tout. It's not like, the state-sanctioned or the statist socialists that like to get into office and claim that they're going to be, for the people and this and that, and all they really do is just use a lot of federal funding for whatever that pays their budget. Like the AOCs, that's not a real socialist. This idea, this boogeyman that socialism is. It's like, most people that talk about socialism don't even know what socialism is. And but yeah, it's regarded as the libertarian wing of socialism. So that's why there's probably, you can see the difference between the socialism. The authoritarian wing of socialism would probably be something like the communists, like tankies. Oh, they're gonna take the offense to that. But libertarian wing, it's like with a lot of libertarians, a lot of ANCAPs, a lot of Hoppian dudes, they really get offended when you bring up the libertarian socialists. There's even on the TPUSA, I don't know. But yeah, there was like a clip of a dude that I just felt so bad rethinking about it. But even at the time when I was watching, I was just like, oh yeah, back in the day, I thought it was an ANCAP. But yeah, no, he was just like, yeah, I'm a libertarian socialist. And then the speaker, who's like this neocon, I don't know who he was. He was just cringe. Is like, there's no such thing as a libertarian socialist. You can't be socialist under libertarianism. And it's like, I just make, it's just like overanalyzing. It's just pure, like, Ben Shapiro kind of speak. It's just like, it's just like, oh, you can't be under libertarianism. You can't be, it's just like, okay, people still believe that they can be individuals. And it's like, yeah, you can be individuals under a liberal social order, because it kind of incentivizes it. Well, it alienates people to the point where you basically become an individual, because whether you like it or not, yeah, you might have friends, but you're not gonna have a community. But yeah, it's like, this idea is just like, oh man. But even then, another thing is just like, yeah, a lot of people bring up, it's like, yeah, you'd have to have other anarchists for it to actually survive. And it's like, yeah, to that I say, yeah, it would have to. It would have to be supported and lived out by actual true believers. It's just like with any system. You can't just have a system where you have everybody in different forms of ideas and diversity of opinions. Like, that wouldn't really exist. That only exists really in a liberal social order. And honestly, it's stupid. I really, at this point, I don't want to live in that. I don't want to live in a world where everybody has differing opinions. I'd rather live in a community where the people that live in that community share the same views that I do. I don't really like this idea, like, oh, we need to have differing opinions. It's like that's something that conservatives say, and they've been only saying it recently because they're usually the victim, so to speak, the victim of these, like internet, cancelings, or we call them what there is. Like, canceling, I guess, doesn't really exist, but yeah, they're the ones that are basically kind of taking the brunt of all of this internet censorship, because their views, I guess. Conservatism is cringe. It's like, I don't like to hear it either, but I wouldn't want to, basically censor it either. But even then, I really don't care. A lot of conservatives, they really don't have that much of a good opinion to say. It's like most of the times, a lot of conservatives think that they are individuals because they're saying the same thing that Ben Shapiro says, and it's just like, oh, 1350 and stuff like that. But I'm just like, no, dude, you are literally just another snowflake, but just with cowboy boots and a cowboy Stetson hat, But yeah, I know this. You have to have true believers, and I am so for that. And but we have to start to band together. And yeah, it's one of those things about about anarchy is that it's like you should be able to do this, but this idea that in a capitalist and a liberal social order, they say that like a lot of these buffoons, they say that it's the only system where you can be a communist, you can be a socialist, you can be an anarchist, and I'm just like, you guys are so retarded. It's like this idea that they don't even know of what they speak, because in order to actually be a communist, it's like most of them are going to be like, we want a classless, stateless society and abolish capitalism. That's kind of like across the board with all three of them, these forms of socialism. And it's just like, well, if you're living in a capitalist society and you're still abiding by the capitalist system, it's like you can't be an anarchist, really. I mean, you can identify, but it's like we're still engaging in capitalism, so it's like you're not really able to actually do what they aim to do. And I think it's just baloney. But yeah, and it's like government also holding the monopoly on violence is no matter what you do, no matter what the laws are, you're still going to be subject to the violence of the state and that of also corporations that use the state to their benefit. There's no way you're going to get around that. You can kill a man in self-defense and you will be thrown through the gauntlet just to prove that you're innocent and that you did try to protect your family. But we live in clown world, in a liberal social order, I would call it. But yeah, also with things, a lot of libertarians like to spout this one off, and I think that they kind of get the picture, but they don't. But it's like taxation is theft, but surplus extraction is even bigger theft. So a lot of those guys that have those stickers and they have the Gadsden flag, I think a lot of them they're well intentioned, but they also don't understand it's like that the job that they're at, that they love, that they claim is like, they're a capitalist because of that. Oh, I'm a proud capitalist because of my job. It allows me to buy Funko Pops and Ben and Jerry's. But yeah, no, it's just like the job that you are working, you are not paid what you're owed unless you literally work for yourself. And even then, you're still subject to the economy and and going rates. You're not getting paid. It's all based off of profit. It's all based off of your surplus that you provide. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, these people are illiterate in economics, but it's the truth. A guy that's doing a weld, let's say for a 3-hour job, he's welding and he's getting paid at $30 an hour. Let's say he actually gets paid 35. Okay, so that's 60, 90, 105. Let's say, $105 or something like that. I don't care. For 3 hours, you would think that's great. But it's like, imagine the company that's getting paid thousands of dollars for that same job. You understand, like, he's getting paid 3 hours to weld, and that's no problem. He's making a little over $100, but that company just made thousands because they sent him over there to do chump change, to get paid chump change, and he's grateful for it because he's getting paid $30 an hour, 35. So this idea that this is just how it works, this is the best system. It's just no. It's like, I think a better system would be one where everybody collectivizes and takes care of each other. You would technically be a 100% tax, but at this point, I really don't care about the idea of just it's like, dude, like getting paid money just and having to deal with money. It's just like, I'd rather just honestly have to worry about getting my food and a place to stay, not have to worry about everything fluctuating because of stupid capitalism. But capitalism also atomizes you and makes you a commodity, makes everything a commodity. You are nothing but a barcode. You are nothing but a a price figure. You are not a real human being under capitalism. And it doesn't care for people, it doesn't care for the environment, it doesn't care for nature, it doesn't care about your rights, your so-called rights. It only cares about making more capital. So this idea that capitalism is the best system, it's just like, bitch, where? It's like, it's like you don't just stop living because, capitalism stops. It's like you can most people can imagine the end of the world, but never an end to capitalism. Or I forget how it goes, but it's just like, it's true. It's like people can't fathom the idea, but it's because it's the only system they've had. It's just like money, 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 and it's all based on exploitation. And and it's like a lot of people will say it's because the people don't get paid the wages that that the company. Let's say, like, they're not getting paid what the company gets paid because they didn't take the risk. It's like, motherfucker, you don't understand how corporations exist. Most of these corporations didn't start from the bottom. They started with wealthy people that already had money, and they had the time and everything at their disposal to start this company. And usually, if it's a smaller company, it got bought out by a bigger company. I mean, just look into the history of some of these corporations, even the more mundane ones, like like the fruit juice ones. Like a lot of times, like the company that made Monster, I think they were a juice company at first, and then they made a Monster. But yeah, that company, when it started off, it's like they all start off like small, but it's just they didn't get the opportunities. They got the opportunities that we couldn't. A lot of times what happens is that they were just at the perfect time and place to be, capitalized off themselves. They were bought off by a different company, and so it's like this idea that's like, oh, they took the risk. It's like, no, they were fortunate. They were fortunate to start the business, and instead of actually, giving actual better wages, or maybe hopefully even doing co-ops, they just decide to get you, above minimum wage, like Amazon. And Amazon is literally funding trips to the moon and stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying. It's like it would make sense if it was actually a risk for a successful company to start. But most of the times, it's not really a risk. It's just they know what they're doing. It's like they took advantage of the economic benefits and the opportunities of that era. They did not just like, they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. It's just like, no, they were simply bought. So that's just some of the ideas right now that I was bringing to the forefront. I'll probably have a little another one later on, but yeah, that's just right now.